So we're
You heard Scott
No,
say.
We're going back into informal.
okay.
You didn't come here just for the.
For the vote.
So let's talk a
Although
little more
you
about
did.
the fourth improvement. I mean, advancing the amendment, I guess there's two parts of the conversation. One is, what should be the charter of this work group? What would we like them to work on? I have some ideas, I'm sure other people do. And then the second part, which is, who might be volunteers to join this work group?
I would volunteer to join.
I think the way we were thinking about it, or the way I was thinking about it, I won't speak for anyone else, but I thought that they could focus on, this group can focus on strategies for moving this forward with whatever we come up with, whether that would be through the convention process or through other proposals for actually taking what we do and moving, having an agenda to move forward to try to get our proposal implemented at the state level, at the national level, et cetera, to research ways, things that have worked in other places for other amendments in the past, and to make some suggestions to the group about what to avoid, what we might want to think about embracing because of the, useful strategies. This is not, in my mind, conceived to be the group that's going to draft the language of the amendment or any of that, but to do research and to come back and report to the commission on strategies for implementation of whatever it is we propose.
My view is similar to Costas, where I'm under the impression that there are similar activities across the states. But right now, my information in this matter is anecdotal. So I think it would be good to understand that this work group could do it. So what's happening in Vermont? What's happening in New Hampshire? What's happening in California? What's happening in Colorado? Okay. Is there some type of network of similar activities in these other states that we should be aware of? And how would that influence our thinking about the strategy to advance the amendment? So to me, this is part of the information gathering and research charter that this work group might entertain.
I agree with that. I am overtaxed on the working groups. But I would offer to share a ton of information that we have in American Promise about the national efforts. And I agree with the description that Costas gave. I would only caution that the issue of whether to call for a convention to propose the amendment, either as a way of pressing Congress or to have a convention propose the amendment and then have it ratified, is a very interesting and hot debate nationally and around the country, as it should be. It's a big deal, as is all of this. And so I would just, that should definitely be part of this group, but it could absorb all of the time of the group and all of the energy, and that's going on in different places. So I think to take the input that's been offered from Wolfpack and We the People and other places, to get input from Common Cause, which argues on the other side that why a convention isn't a good idea. I think we will be asked, like, what is our position on whether the commission recommends that as a way of moving the amendment forward. What we decide about that will be, let's find out. But in terms of information gathering, getting that argument and managing the argument so that there's room for this working group to conceive of many other ideas that would also move it. I know Matt McKnight, who wants to lead this group, I think, is very interested in sort of creative things we can do to try to bring people of Massachusetts together across partisan lines to actually move something forward together. Greg here has proposed many different ideas about language of the amendment and concepts of how, so we might want to recommend some of it, that we can't do because of open meeting law, but it could be a recommendation that the Commonwealth engage in this sort of process of consensus building around language. So there's a lot for this working group to do, so I would just add that footnote to what Costa said about some of the issues could really, you could spend, and people have years on some of these issues. So to manage it efficiently will be a challenge, but very important.
I just make one comment about the gathering information issue. The people who are working on this currently in most states, who are absolutely diligent and passionate about it, you don't have the same number of people who are working against it yet, because they're not bothering to really get the knives out until they see a threat. And to some extent, we are speaking in an echo chamber. And so when we propose ideas of how to get the amendment passed, a lot of times the enthusiasm is leading the reality on that. And so I don't know how the committee's gonna do it, but you need to have a little bit of thinking of, let's say this is the way we're gonna go ahead and do it. What are the other, I don't say the bad guys, but the people on the opposite side going to do? I mean, I just had a discussion, we're off the record now, or I don't know if we're off the record now.
Nothing's off the record.
Nothing's off the
Go ahead.
record now. Well, no, so and I'm pursuing this, and if other people have better connections, please follow. But I was at a meeting this weekend with Anthony Romero from the ACLU, and I had a chance to ask him, what do you think about the Citizens United Amendment? And he said, the ACLU, it's not our biggest issue at the ACLU, we've got lots of other things to fight, but we're okay with limitations on campaign spending, and we're very much against any limitations on other organizations being able to speak about campaigns and speak about issues, because this would impede our ability to do our job, even though he recognizes that it enables other people to sometimes undermine his job. And so I asked him, what would it take for you at the ACLU to find an amendment that you could back? Because my concern, if I wasn't a policy wonk worrying about this, and I heard that the ACLU came out against the constitutional amendment, I would take that as a signal that I shouldn't vote for that. So you need to get people like that lined up on your side, or at least willing not to speak against it. So I'm gonna be working with his legislative director in DC to see, is there something the ACLU could be comfortable with? Maybe not back, but they wouldn't actively, and so we need to find, I always think in terms of tactics, and what are those 5 groups that we want to make sure are gonna come under the tent? So I don't know if that's part of this committee or some other committee, but if you don't do that, what'll happen is you'll come up with a great plan, and then it'll just be derailed because the ACLU comes out and says, oh my God, you realize we're gonna be dead in the water, we'll never be able to fight.
Yeah.
Again,
I
my
think
view,
the
that's very much part of
AFL-CIO
this.
has more clout on Beacon Hill than the ACLU does. And the national AFL-CIO is anti-convention.
Mhm.
yeah.
And, so if we.
Convention, not amendment.
Oh, okay.
Convention, amendment,
Doing an amendment
doing an
convention
amendment,
versus
instead
going
of
through
call for a
Congress.
convention.
Okay.
And, so if we ultimately decided to go with an amendment that would call for a convention, then we need to turn around organized labor, which is not an easy thing to do.
So do you think, Tim, that part of the charter of this working group is to look at potential alliances
Uh-huh.
with whom you might affiliate?
Yeah,
For example, AFL-CIO, ACLU, or
Yeah.
fill in the blank, right?
Sure.
It could all be part of what the work group
Yeah.
looks at and comes to.
because ultimately in the State House, it's, looking at all the stakeholders, and people look at consensus. The leadership in both both chambers look for consensus, and so if we don't have a group, pushing in our direction, then
Yeah.
we're swimming against the tide, which we've been doing for 5 or 6 years.
I think it's important to distinguish though between support for a constitutional amendment
Yeah.
and the substantive change that would make and how it would address the limits on money and so forth. And I agree with Greg that on that issue alone, put aside how we propose the amendment, whether it's a
Okay.
convention or Congress, but just on the amendment itself, to anticipate who would be maybe concerned about it, and then
Sure.
and have some kind of, what is our recommendation for engagement of
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
Chamber of
Yeah.
Commerce, the
Yeah.
ACLU, all the people
New
who
York
might have
Times.
concerns, what is our recommendation, how
strategy,
we
exactly.
encourage,
Yeah.
engage them?
No, it would be good
And
to
then the
invite them to
separate-
come to us and
yeah,
talk about it.
And then the second issue, I think, is the convention issue, which isn't about whether we should do an amendment or not, it's whether the amendment should go through Congress or a convention to propose the amendment for the first time in American history, which we haven't done, or that we should propose the convention in a way to pressure Congress to get the amendment out. But, so I think I
Which
see
has
it
been
as sort
done.
of the substance of what the amendment itself, and this group needs to figure out what's the best consensus building on that, and then the process of moving that forward, which is both big complex issues, but slightly different issues.
So there's more opposition generally in having a convention, correct?
Yeah, and
Because
if you're
of
thinking of
what
it as a
opens up.
Venn diagram, there are people who support the amendment,
Mhm.
but not a convention.
Exactly.
And then there are, so that there, so to me, I always think of it as, okay, all of this huge group of people support a constitutional amendment. Then there's a debate going on about tactics.
Mhm.
How do you get it? Will
Mhm.
Congress ever do it, or does Congress need the threat of a convention?
Mhm.
That's a debate among, in my view, friends, although they don't seem like it sometimes.
Right.
Basically a disagreement among people who agree on what they want, but are
Mhm.
fighting over how to get there, you know?
Right.
Paul's had some experience in this.
Just in your Venn diagram, I would also point out, we were hearing testimony at the State House this morning about people who want an open convention to talk
Mhm.
about whatever.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
So-
think
and
that's
there's a
the
bill
problem.
calling for that, so those are people that don't necessarily wanna overturn Citizens United, but they want a convention, so
That's right.
just to complete your Venn diagram.
Right, and that's what scares some of
Yeah,
other
sure.
people about a
I'm
convention,
opposed to it,
because
but,
it's,
you know,
yeah.
Muddies the water.
yeah.
That's right, it opens it
And
up.
there's proposals that, you know, to do all kinds of things, including repeal
Balanced
earlier
budget,
amendments and-
you know, get rid of abortion.
Everything.
Everything,
We
everything.
open it up
Get rid of
that
the-
way.
So this group has its work
Bill of
cut out
Rights.
for it, number
Mhm.
4, so lucky Matt's not here to hear what he's getting into, because.
So I was gonna send, well, Matthew and Carmen indicated as potential volunteers. I was gonna send out a note to all the members saying, you know, we're forming this committee, anybody else wanna join? And here's some suggestions as you think about your charter.
Mhm.
Like the other work groups, I'd like the members of this work group to create their own charter, but we can share with them all these notes. And they could then, you know, come back to us. We could also maybe recruit a third or fourth person. Usually we have like 3 or 4 per working
Put
group.
my name on asterisks for sure, so.
Mhm.
You want to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
They want to do it.
We'll hang out.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think it should allow the other members the chance to volunteer should they choose, but I'll send out this type of note as a follow-up. It sort of begs the question, like, who's gonna actually do the drafting? Do we think that comes later?
I think it should come pretty soon, but later, yeah.
Is that a fifth?
I mean,
We
we
should
need
bet.
the information to think about the drafting, and in my view, we would all be involved, at least in some ways, in the drafting of the opening.
That would be a good agenda item for the longer Saturday meeting, if we can confirm that, where we spend maybe an hour, half hour to an hour, like breaking out an outline of what subjects the final report should cover, and then maybe parceling out some drafting committees or something, and some process, you know, because we're now about 90 days away from the
Right,
deadline,
yeah.
so.
Maybe add that to the October 5th agenda, assuming that we have an October 5th meeting.
What time are you all proposing on October 5th?
So where we were is, we appreciate you running over here, I know that you got several.
And I ran to Suffolk, because when I left Boston, the meeting was in Suffolk. But that's
The last one.
The last one, right?
The last one was in Suffolk.
But didn't we
This one
say
got-
We
Let's
did,
have-
we did, so.
Yeah,
It was on my calendar too.
It's gonna be at the same place,
So-
okay,
so-
perfect, but it's all good.
Yeah, it was so the thought is that we should test the waters to see if we could have a meeting on Saturday, October 5th in the afternoon.
So I could make Saturday work, but not in the afternoon, it'd have to be in the morning for me.
Yeah, same with me, I could do the morning and on the 5th, but not the afternoon.
I think I can do either, but would prefer the morning.
So we got 3 morning people.
So I'll circulate a sort of a straw
Not that
poll.
particular
Like
Saturday, I
morning,
can't.
what time?
Yeah, and I
Other
was,
Saturdays I can't.
I have a little
What time do I-
tally
I want
sheet say, you know, could you make it on Saturday in the morning? If yes, please mark here. In the afternoon, please mark here. Both, please mark here.
Yeah.
And I think it's the sense of the group that whatever time is gonna give us the highest probability of a quorum is the time that we need to settle on. Right?
Yeah.
It'll be what I'd characterize as the least inconvenient time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the,
This would be underlined.
So I think we can probably dispense with the reports from the working groups, because they're not all here, and it's not a quorum, but as far as reviewing the August and September, earlier September sessions, I think, having attended both of those, what I can say is I found that the testimony was quite rich and very useful, and in particular, the invited testimony from some of the special guests that offered some more details and some expertise that I think was very, very helpful in shaping our thinking moving forward. So we don't have very many meeting days left between now and when we actually have to produce something. So to the extent that we want to reach out to other guests for invited testimony, I think the working groups and also the group as a whole should maybe think about who those individuals are and try to line them up as soon as possible, and at least to, even if we don't have firm dates in mind for these meetings, to get a sense of their availability or make them, put tentative holds on their, or at least plant a seed that we might want them to come in so that they can make themselves available. We've talked about a lot of people, but we're running out of time for when we can get them in, so it's one of the things that I wanted to.
They invited testimony. Did you want to invite somebody to Gil Costas?
Well, there are a few people, including ones from Europe.
Yeah, I think we're gonna, things have gone a little slower on the data project than we wanted. But Liz Tye, the research scientist at Brandeis, is doing what would be a very interesting and helpful project, using some big data from federal data, Federal Election Commission, Open Secrets, and state data from the Center for Money and Institute for Money and State Politics. I've got a different name now, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
And she's just been slowed down, but hopes to have it by October, so I think that would be an excellent invited guest to walk us
Do you think
through
October 5th would be too
some
soon?
of the data. Maybe, but yeah, probably. There is also the two people, Kim Wass, Kim Wass, who has been here to, she's testified herself in public comments, but she has passed on, I can't recall if I shared it, if I didn't, I'll share it with the co-chairs, 2 requests to testify. One of them has sent us an email about meeting, going to the southeast, about connecting sort of energy issues to this issue, and so, and the others in Brookline. I think both of them are along the lines of impacts of the